I now call this workshop of the Bryan Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this workshop has been duly called, and that notice of this workshop has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551. We want to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and wish you all a happy new year. Citizens may make comments about topics relevant to district business. Topics should be limited to 3 minutes. Comments concerning specific students or personnel will be heard in closed session. Do we have any citizen comments today? No, ma'am. Thank you. There being none, we ask that you turn the sound off on all your electronic devices. And first on our agenda today, we have an information item. We will first hear about the Inspire Academy update, hearing from our Director of Advanced Academics, Dr. Christina Richardson. Oh. Uh-oh. Yes, of course. Let's see, what do you want us to move to next? We can either go to the safety or
Kevin,
the SAFE
ready
grant,
for that?
or we can do the instructional calendar. Okay,
right.
Let's move to item 2, discussion of the 2023-2025 Safety and Facilities Enhancement SAFE Grant Cycle 1. We'll be hearing from our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Kevin Besaw, and then we'll come back to item 1 later.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is an opportunity to apply for a grant from the state that will allow us to do some things with our safety and security. Just a synopsis of it, it'll provide funds for school districts to implement the adopted safety standards that were adopted with the Commissioner's rule from the last legislative session to prevent school violence and address the factors that put people at risk or that protect them from the violence. This grant runs from December 1 of 2023 to July 31 of 2025. And it has a pre-award back to June of 22. So if we have things that we have done, we could reimburse the district for that. The amount is $2,247,000, and it will allow mainly for fencing. We could purchase fencing with that, which we have some additional items that we are looking at right now. Actually have bids out, which were also included in the bond, the last bond that was passed. We can do for exterior doors, mechanical doors, the electronic openers, key cards, those kind of things. We could use it for that. We also have some the resistant film, the installation for that on certain doors that are not within a secured area as defined by the legislation as well. Silent panic alert technologies, two-way radios, things of that nature. We have a pretty good list of things that we think that we can use it for. So we would ask, and it's just a matter of presenting it to y'all and asking if there's any questions just before we push the button. The actual deadline for application was today, but we got notice Friday that the application deadline is actually January 15th. So next Monday would be the application deadline. But as far as that goes, we are ready to push the button, as they say, and apply for that grant.
Are there any questions?
Did this just kind of sneak up, at least on me, I guess? When did we?
I read about it in the TASB, the last TASB report that we got, and I was hoping that we had gotten it, before I read it in that report. I just read that report last week.
Yeah, the time frame is December 1st. So it was right before the break was when it came out, and it took us a little bit to get figured out what it is exactly and what it can be used for, and make sure that we feel like it would be a good fit for us. But I don't think we do have items that we will be able to utilize this for. So I don't think that's, I recommend that we would proceed with that and get those funds to use for those certain things. Some of those things that were in the bond funds as well, we could utilize this instead of that and then save those bond funds for other things that were priorities on that as well.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, David, but having read it then, and it dawned on me too that I thought it was short notice, but thank y'all for, finding out and delving into it and following up with it.
Yeah, and I think that was the reason for the extension that was granted last Friday, where they extended it out an additional week because they knew it was a short time frame and it would take districts a little bit more time to do all the things that are required before we can apply for it.
Well, only reason, I was just puzzled because we talked over and over about the lack of funding that we got for school safety, and it just sort of seemed like this was hiding somewhere, and I'm glad it's fantastic. It's great. I hope we get it. I don't know what the likelihood is that we'll receive it. Is it, I assume it's not a done deal yet, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I can't say it's 100%, but I think it's a pretty good
Likely.
chance,
Good.
very good chance that we would receive it.
Great.
I'd say, based on my experience with TEA, these kind of grants in the past, they do have typically a very short turnaround. No one knows if they're coming. It says, be prepared. It might be coming, and be prepared to turn around very quickly and hit submit. I hope, too, it's a response to those of us who have been pretty vocal about the lack of funding to handle the things that have been passed by our legislators. In the absence of additional funding, since they were not able to add this year through all those special sessions, perhaps this is the other reason they've decided to do a grant.
Yeah,
Grateful.
that could
Yeah.
be, but yes, we'll take it.
We'll take it. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Besaw.
Thank you.
Proceed. All right, we will now come back to our other item, our Aspire Academy update. Apologies for any confusion. We will now hear from Dr. Christina Richardson, our Director of Advanced Academics.
I'm so sorry. I was working on the Aspire Professional Development coming up, actually, and just lost track of time.
No worries.
So I just wanted to give you a brief update today. If you'll remember this time last year, you guys were giving approvals of what the direction of Aspire was going to. We started this process actually in the spring of 22, getting lots of stakeholder feedback. Parents were involved, teachers were involved, administrators, and they continued to be involved throughout the entire process. And so this year, we launched our very first group of fifth graders into Aspire. And you can see the numbers there. Jane Long, with dual language blending into Aspire, has 183 students.
To advance. There you go.
And Rayburn has 176 students, so they each have 8 teachers, 2 teams on their campuses. And then Sadbury has 100 students. Obviously, they'll get bigger next year as they add 6th grade. Sadbury has 4 teachers, sorry. One of the things that we really wanted to know are what do students think about Aspire? Are we headed in the right direction? Because what we wanted to do was bring the interest of what Inquire had, that kind of humanities feel, and Odyssey, which was the STEM Academy, and blend the best of both worlds together. And so that's what we did. And so the student response has been very positive. They feel like they're being challenged. They really like their teachers. They love the projects that they're involved in. And they're getting experiences in 6 different pathways during enrichment. And so this is really how we brought those 2 worlds together through biomedical, computer science, and engineering, representing the STEM side of it, and then fine arts, global studies, and graphic design, representing more of that humanities side of it. During the enrichment period at the intermediate school day, this is where they do projects specifically in these pathways. All of these pathways are then aligned into middle school, into high school, with the goal being that it's going to not only support these students in finding out what are they interested in, what do they want to pursue, hopefully into college, but also supporting our CTE sequences of completer status and making sure that these students get a full sequence of courses, not just one or two here or there, because they're still trying to figure out what they like. And then looking forward to 8th grade, I have been meeting with the lead teachers of both 5th and 6th grade, looking at what are the things going well in 5th grade, where do we need to improve or create new things for it, and then looking forward to 6th grade, what is going to have to happen to make the 6th grade Aspire happen seamlessly. So we need to work on starting next year is when compacted curriculum begins for both math and science. Our curriculum coordinators are already poised to start working on that to make sure that the compacted curriculum is aligned into 8th grade. And then our CTE courses is another thing. I've been working very closely with David Reynolds, Laura King, their whole team, to make sure that these pathways are going to be leading students into the next level of Project Lead the Way courses, of business courses, whatever the students are going to choose to pursue when they get into 7th grade and then into high school. And then CTE is also helping with the enrichment additions. And so this past year, we found a variety of enrichment projects for 5th grade. Well, now we need a new set of projects for 6th grade so that they're not repeating the same things. And so that's what both Fine Arts and CTE are working on now, or what's that next set of projects for 6th grade. And then we are working on an upcoming professional development. One of our big goals with blending Odyssey and Inquire was to give our teachers an opportunity to collaborate together instead of having kind of these two separate pockets of specialized groups, that we now have across 3 campuses, groups of teachers who can come together and work. And so we're having our first collaborative full PD day on the end of January. We're going to have 2 groups, English and social studies come, and then science and math come on a separate day. And that's going to be, I think it's the last week of January. And give those teachers, we're going to do some stuff together in the morning, and then they're actually going to have content breakouts in the afternoon where all 3 campuses are going to be working together. And then, of course, continuing to meet with my lead teachers. We're doing everything from finalizing a school supply list, reading list, all those things, so that by summer it's all ready to go. And then last but not least, applications are open. We've already opened them on December 3rd, and we actually already have 96 applications, and we haven't even had our information nights yet. So the response is definitely positive that Aspire is headed in the right direction. Any questions I can answer for you?
So right now, it's just 5th graders?
Correct, it is just 5th graders, yes, sir.
Okay, so the fact that Sudbury doesn't have 6th graders yet, what's the difference in the numbers? I mean, I understand it's opening brand new school.
Yes,
there's
and that's all
lots
I meant, is
going
that
on.
they'll grow, you know, their 5th grade may not grow, but that'll depend on the zoning, because all students are attending based on their school zones. And so depending on, you know, if more people move into their zone or not, their 5th grade may grow, but they will, as a program, grow as they add more 6th grade students.
Okay.
I don't know that they'll ever get over 100, because I don't know what their total 5th grade is going to look like next year. Our goal is for them to get to that 150, but they may not, just depending on how many students they have in total. Because I know that Sudbury in general is going to be smaller than the other 2 campuses.
Dr. Richardson, is it possible if the student is at Sudbury in 5th grade and did not choose Aspire for whatever reason, could they get into it next year when they become a 6th grader?
Yes, they can apply right now as well.
Okay, or if we get a move in, they're not going to miss out just because they weren't in it in 5th grade?
No.
Okay.
I think this is really going to enhance those CTE courses at that younger age too, with these
Yeah.
type students moving into that. I think that's going to be good. I think the teachers are going to really enjoy that, love having these kids.
Yeah. Well, and we're just excited for students to have these experiences that, you know, I saw in global studies, I did a unit on business, or I did a unit on graphic design, and I think I like it. And being able to have those experiences now and understand more of what those topics actually mean. We know a lot of kids always say, oh, I'm going to be an engineer. Do you really know what that means? There's a lot of math, and if you don't like math, that may not be your thing. And so having those opportunities to really investigate those careers, actually do some hands-on projects in those content areas, to give them a better idea of what do they want to do moving forward. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
so much. Okay, we will now move to an update on the development of the 2024-2025 instructional calendar. We're going to hear from Donna Willett, our Director of Counseling Services.
Good afternoon. I'm back to get to talk to calendar, maybe just one more time after today. As we've gone through, this has been incredibly eye-opening, I think, for many of our teachers and many of our parents. As we talk about these parameters that are there, sometimes we just assume everybody knows. But many of our teachers, the difference between all of professional development counting towards those operational minutes, or, oh, I didn't know if we got to a certain amount, that's not included anymore. And many of the parents not understanding the whole operational minutes and how that plays into effect with the number of days that you need to have students in class. So I feel like it was a really great learning experience for everybody. We've had this timeline, and each time I've come to you, we've adjusted it a little bit, just to make sure that we cover all of our bases. Last time, this slide was in there, and it talked about how we went from 7 to 4 to 2. But as we got really deep into the last two calendars we looked at, we realized there was still a little bit of concern about how many teacher equivalency days are. And those are, remember, if they do professional development during the summer, then that can take the place of a day during the school year or at the beginning of the school year. We've talked a little bit about staff starting before August 1st. We found out this year with that push to start earlier, that bumped our teachers back into July, which then affected how payroll, how insurance and things were like that were done. So we really honed in on that to see how it would work. And then again, how many of these TE days, how many professional development days do we need for our teachers in the summer? So with all of that said, we have narrowed it down to two calendars. We have an A and a B, and they are slightly different. But I still, again, are going to pull our committees back together Thursday afternoon. I'm going to combine our DEIC and our district calendar committee together to look at the last couple things. But what I can tell you is we've developed a side-by-side of what is the same on these calendars and what is different. They both do not have teachers starting back until at least August the 1st or later. Start date on the two calendars, one is the 13th, one is the 14th, again, very similar. One has 2 professional development days built in throughout the fall, the other one has 1. In regards to fall break, where most of the questioning and concerns have come up, I guess there are 2. Early releases, I can tell you majority of the early releases are not there. Both parents, families, our teachers, elementary teachers, said it was very difficult with those early releases, and so that we have backed off of those throughout the semester. There's still a couple, we always end the last day of the semester early, but in general, we've backed off those early releases. In regards to fall break, option A versus option B. One of them still does have a full week for students that are off. For teachers, we've built in some of those TE days during that time frame, so if they don't attend summer PD, it would be then. And then the other calendar has a early release on Wednesday for teachers and for students, and then out a Thursday and Friday. So it's a much more compacted fall break, so it limits those number of days that we are out of school. When we move into the spring, the calendars are almost identical. So with the question of fall break, PD days built in, I know the biggest concern has been with childcare and making sure our families have that open to them. I actually reached out, and I left the wrong Post-it note. I actually reached out to our local leader for Alpha Best and have asked her some questions about Alpha Best being open during professional development days, during the fall break. You know, this past year they were opened during the fall break, but they were limited to one building. And they did fill up at that one building. And so she is now working with her supervisors, those above her, to see about extending Alpha Best to an additional building during that time frame. And the same thing with professional development. What she said is, she said, we covered the early release days, but they were difficult because so much of their staff are college kids. She said, but we would do our best that we could, and same thing with working during those professional development days. We're going to see what we can do to best support y'all the best way. Would it be the number of campuses that are covered every day from 3 to 6 with Alpha Best? Probably not, but they are very much working on extended. Callie's here with me, and she's going to talk about her conversations with the Boys and Girls Club.
Friday, I got to talk to Rhonda Watson with the Boys and Girls Club, and this past fall break, I think there was a misunderstanding within the community that the Boys and Girls Club filled up or that they ran out of room for students, and obviously we want to provide the best options for our families that need that child care, but actually it was a misunderstanding that they filled up. It was a misunderstanding because the Boys and Girls Club, and this is the information that she gave me, but the club is only available to kids with memberships. So if a normal person without, not a normal person, if a person without a membership tries to go to the Boys and Girls Club, they are not able to do that. They have to purchase a membership, which is only $25 for the months August through May. So for all of the school months, it's only $25 for the entire year, which is a great deal. But all of the kids that attended the fall break at the Boys and Girls Club this past year had memberships. And that's why if somebody from the community without a membership came, they were under the impression that it was full because they didn't have that membership. However, Rhonda was super willing to work with Bryan ISD, and she was excited about the opportunity and potential for this fall break. She said because we're starting this early, anything's possible in regards to what they can do and what they can offer for people in the community. So obviously our kids can purchase that $25 membership, or they said that they will work out a camp rate, and that camp rate will be available to anyone in the community regardless of a membership, that people, and that I said that we could promote, you know, on social media through our communication outlets to let all of our students and families know. It would be a very reasonable rate, and they think this past fall break they only had 50 people or 50 kids come, and they said they could hold a max of 200 kids, which is significantly more. And she said they've never had that many kids there, but she knows that's how many they can hold. So she was more than willing and open to options for that. The only thing she said is obviously she really appreciates the partnership with Bryan ISD, and she said that we currently during the summer months are already providing them with some extra food and snacks and stuff for the club. And she said that during that fall break, if we wanted to kind of donate snacks, or she said cereal boxes, whatever for the mornings, that would obviously be helpful. But she was more than willing to work out that camp rate that doesn't require a membership.
Questions?
Well, I guess before a final decision's made, just hang on, you're going to find out about Alpha Best. They're going to give you a definite answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I meet with the DEIC and the calendar committee on Thursday, so I'm hoping to have that answer by then, because our goal is still to try to get this wrapped up by the 22nd meeting, which if we meet on Thursday to turn around and post the survey on Friday, we could have it there a week prior to the next meeting on the 22nd. But I wanted to let you know where we're at, because if there was anything that you wanted me to go back yet and say to DEIC or calendar committee as we make these final determinations.
Well, my only other comment is just from what I heard from some people, and it sort of makes sense to me, is that, even when you talked about the fall break, the possible fall break and the early release on Wednesday, I believe you said, I'm just hearing from people, and some of these are teachers, that they just really aren't doing anything. It's just not enough time to even really get going. And so it basically ends up being just sort of wasted. So I'm sure some teachers are trying to do stuff, but that was a feeling that I don't know how widespread it is, but I sure would like to know or hope that y'all are surveying, I guess, teachers a little bit about that. Is it really workable to get anything done by the time you get settled down and try to get things started, and boom, your time's up?
You're talking
So-
about early release.
Yes,
right?
early release,
Okay.
early
Yeah.
release.
I think the committee, can you quantify that? Because my understanding is y'all pretty much removed all
Well, yeah,
early
I did
release.
hear
Calendar
that. It
B-
sounds like still got.
Calendar B only has one early release in it in the fall. Calendar A actually has three, with one of those being that early release leading into being Thursday and Friday off for fall break.
Yeah, I understand that, and I know, I'm glad, I'm thrilled. I would be concerned if there were still a bunch of them, because there was a lot of negativity about that. But I'm just even wondering, or even three too many. I don't see the value in them. If it really is valuable for other reasons, because it's just great for things that I don't truly recognize, that's fine. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it if we at least keep the numbers minimal. But I'm not comfortable at this point that it's really an educational opportunity for kids that when we do the early release.
I wrote that down. Anybody
The,
else?
the other feedback I just sort of reflected on in looking at other school calendars was splitting fall break so that it wasn't a full week, that it was split over 2 weeks, so that maybe it's a Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend, and then the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know if that's something that y'all talked about, but from a childcare perspective, sometimes that gives people the opportunity to maybe switch out grandparents or those kind of things. It's not such the burden of a full week of trying to figure that out.
I think the conversation was more, do we put it in as a full week or do we put it in as less time? And when we put it in as less time, that 2.5 days kind of made sense because it was longer. I did visit with the athletic coordinators in regards to the effects on practice and scheduling and whatnot. And honestly, which really shocked me, they preferred end of the week days off versus the beginning of the week. They said the beginning of the week, it's hard, it's heavy, practice is very intense. And so on Mondays and Tuesdays, we need things as structured as possible.
So, I'm on that committee, and you and I have talked, and I was one of those that said, if it helps teachers to have a break like that, teachers and staff, let's work it out where childcare, we kind of find that happy medium. But the Plan B, because I wasn't at the last meeting, it looks like Plan B is still a full week.
Option B does still have a full week in it. Option A is the one that has an early release Wednesday and then Thursday, Friday.
Right.
But
So-
y'all didn't talk about splitting it over a weekend, like still doing the full week? Because what I'm afraid is going to happen here is when we send these out, people are really voting for whether to have a full week of fall break or not. And, you know, okay, but if it were split over a weekend where it's 2 days before the weekend, 2 or 3 days after the weekend, the answer might be different, is sort of the feedback I've heard from people. So I didn't know if that was something y'all had discussed, and if not, why not, I guess.
In regards to the committees and as they worked through these, there is that group that wants a full Monday through Friday off. And then there was the group as they walked around as parents and teachers, elementary mentality versus secondary mentality. As they talked, they felt like this was a very good compromise. And if you notice on what you have, the 2 weeks are different. One of them is in the middle of October, the full week. The other one is at the end of October. And that is the reason they wanted it that way with the Thursday, Friday, because it is the Halloween and the day after, where we many times have struggles at the elementary level. I don't know how, I'm trying not to say, but that's the reason. So it pushed the professional development in calendar B is in September, which in calendar A, we pushed it down to October. So it is a Friday, Monday for students, but professional development and parent conference day for teachers, and then pushes the fall break then to the end of October, trying to balance everything out because then Thanksgiving is so late next year. It's trying to strategically place those breaks where they're 3 or 4 weeks apart and we don't go 6 weeks without a break.
I forgot about Thanksgiving being so late. So, yeah, you've got 3 full weeks after the 2.5
Yes.
school days of the break.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, and that's Plan A.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think, like Ruthie, I'm on that committee. When we talk to the alphabets and talk to the Boys and Girls Club, before we go to try to get a decision, if we can have all that information for the parents. Because where I understand that the Boys and Girls Club, they weren't full, but no one knew you had to be a member. That wasn't relayed ahead of time, so the parents didn't know, oh, I can't just take Johnny over here because he's not a member. Maybe if we have idea of what that discounted rate's gonna be for the students, because even though we think $25 is minimum, that might not be minimum for some families to pay. And then, is it worth the $25 if I'm only gonna take my child that 1 week? If we can maybe see where it's a benefit for the parents to go and pay the minimum price to be able to use the club throughout the year for the other days and not just look at it as just 1 week, what we're looking at. But if we can have more of that information to give to the parents before we ask them to make a decision on this, so they don't just see that 1 week. Because I know in the calendar committee, there's still a little bit, some want the week, some don't. It's still kind of a hard thing to decide on what's the best decision. But I think if we have more information to give to the parents, that'll be easier for them to make a decision and not just go along with saying, no, I don't want that week at all, because it's difficult.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we absolutely plan to communicate with the parents in advance of them having to make a decision on the survey, so that they do understand all the options with Boys and Girls Club, Alpha Best. We've reached out to Legends because they have a camp, not just for the fall break, but for spring break, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's several times during the year that the schools are closed. So we're going to do everything we can to make this parent-friendly, and then working with the Boys and Girls Club to mitigate any obstacles, because you're right, if they have 3 or 4 kids, that's $25 times 4 kids. So we're going to do, again, everything possible to level the playing field should that calendar rise up to make the survey cut. I do appreciate Dr. Harlan's comment, and I know you'll take that back to your committees just to see, instead of a full week, would they consider a Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, some combination where the weekend is in the middle of it. So we can see what that might look like. I know College Station ISD has theirs out. Texas A&M is starting to put theirs out. Many districts are doing different renditions of this. It's a hard decision, because you're right, as you said on the calendar committee, it's pretty divided. The teachers, by and large, desperately loved that full week off for that break, to catch their breath, to be rested, to come back and recharged to finish the semester strong. So it was a good thing for the staff, but children first always, and we've got to consider the parents and daycare burden as well. So thank you.
Right. Again, though, many of our teachers, as they walked around and got the input from the parent leadership group and other parents that sent in information, they're like, oh, that makes sense. And so I do believe there are some teachers that are going to appreciate option A. And in the same regards, I think there are parents that understand the needs for the break, and they utilize that for their personal families and vacations and whatever at the same time also.
So we have a DEIC meeting Thursday.
And I just put calendar,
Right.
just put them together, yes, ma'am.
And then once that discussion happens between those two committees Thursday, then the survey goes out Monday
I'm hoping to put it out Friday.
Friday, okay.
If we can really,
to the community.
yes,
Okay, I mean, literally the community, because
Yes.
we need everybody, grandparents help everybody, not necessarily. And then, we get, well, I mean, not, you know what I'm saying. We need to get those thoughts out there. And then, it's only gonna be there for a week though, for people to get back.
that would be the challenge compared to last year. Last year, I think we had it up for 10 days. This would put it up for basically 8 days.
Then we need a whole lot of marketing between now
They're
and
working on it.
Friday. And the same thing with our companies that we're working with on the outside. And then I guess we go from there.
So Don, when is the absolute deadline that it has to come
It
before the
doesn't.
board for a
mean,
decision?
It could wait till February. But the earlier we get it done, the more prep time that we have to make sure everybody is aligned, but there is no set date.
Because I understand, I understand we want to get it done, but I want to make sure we do it with a fine tooth. I want to make sure we get all the information, and I think some of those comments Dr. Harlan made, we maybe need to revisit them or look at it and see if it is an option, or if it can work, what does that look like? And then maybe the board gets a look at how it would look. Is there a way that it could work before we just send out and get a vote on A or B, and when something else could have worked? So I don't, I think it's I know it's kind of crunchy, but I don't want to see us on Facebook, people mad because we got B, they wanted A, and we could have had a C. I want to make sure we do due diligence to it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I'm saying.
Here's my fear. We're going to get 50-50 back. Now, students are going to love the full week,
Of course.
but I think we can pretty much set that aside. But I think when we look at the parents and focus in on the parents, and I even wouldn't be surprised if from the teacher standpoint that they're going to be 50-50 on a week versus not a week. Because I don't talk to as many teachers as y'all do, but some of the teachers that have talked to me have been very vocal against that week as well. So I do know they're out there. It's not a slam dunk. That's not going to help us if it's 50-50, right? It's not going to help us make a decision on which one's better. Somebody's going to be mad. And so and I understand, my other comment is, I realize this is late in the game, but I would almost agree if there's a way to show an option that is that 5 days off, but it's split over 2 weeks, that's a viable, different solution. I mean, that's different than just saying, oh, you get the week or you don't get the week, right? And so we may still end up with 50-50, but I think that week is a divisive week in there, but I think it's critical. I understand from the staff perspective, but I also think it's important because we've heard from parents that go, oh, well, you want my kid to be in attendance every day. Nope, we're giving them time off throughout the year to get caught up. We want them to be in school when school is in session. I think that leads to giving the kids a break, but my concern is that with the survey, maybe it might be a way that we run this on Friday, and if we come back and there's no clear-cut winner, there's 50-50, then we take the time to come back and go, okay, we're going to give it third option and rerun it with the lead.
The concern I have is several years ago, and Barbara helped me out, when we put up 3 options, it makes two of them very similar because they would still, two of them would have 5 days, and then it's harder to judge.
I'm not saying put 3 up at the same time. What I'm saying is put 2 up, and if there's not a clear-cut winner, one way or the other, because with the parents, then we go back and do the due diligence of saying, okay, discuss more. We're going to come back with a different option to see if this has a clear-cut winner. Knock out one of the 3, bring back that.
I think that's a valid point. Mr. McCall, to your point, whenever there's a particular or a singular stakeholder group that's divided down the middle, it never ends up where there's support for either program. And so you kind of have to get them to at least some level or tipping point of consensus. And so I can see your point completely, that if you're going to end up with a split vote, then really no one's happy, so to speak, right? And so you have to then go back to other options that bring the community to consensus and the stakeholders to consensus. And if any one stakeholder group is split down the middle, it is going to be that problem. So we can go back to the committees this week and play around with the different options with over a weekend kind of version. Although I did hear you say that there was some pushback from athletics in particular because of the negative impact on a Monday, Tuesday off for those organizations.
But they
that was their
still, they
feedback.
still have a Monday, Tuesday off with the
Right.
current one.
Right,
So
would be,
We're
right.
not solving that.
Exactly. So we'll take a look at those options for them. And then we can launch the survey like you're suggesting and kind of see how it goes. And if it starts to trend in a different way, then we can certainly postpone the board action until February and possibly put out another set of draft calendars should that happen. Mrs. Willett's right. When you do have 3, and that's not what we're proposing, but when you did have 3, it did split it 3 ways and we couldn't come to consensus, which again goes back to the point. Until the stakeholders are pretty much in consensus and there's a tipping point to one calendar or another, you end up with a year of woes with one group or another. So.
And I guess I just want to also add, we've enjoyed getting the calendar out there early, but there's, like you mentioned, there's nothing that requires us to put the calendar out there in January. There's not a board stipulation or anything else that this goes out. I would rather, I think as mentioned by other board members here, take the time to get it to as much of a consensus with this big of a change as
Sure.
we possibly can.
I have an opinion. I think that I'd like to share. In regards to fall break, I think if you're a parent and you want a fall break, it's set up the way it should be. Is if as a business professional and I'm traveling, I would prefer to have a weekend on the front and back end of that trip. That way I have 9 days to travel versus 7 if we were to bridge it over a weekend. So I think for those that would be interested in a fall break, that would consider going to see family or going on vacation, a 9-day time frame would be ideal to make plans versus a 7-day. And then those that don't and that aren't interested in that week, they wouldn't vote for it. So I understand where you're coming from, Julie. I just, at the same time, I think from my standpoint, I would prefer to have a 9-day time frame than a 7.
And I agree 100% with Joel, but I don't think it would hurt. I mean, I would want the week, absolutely the weekends, but I don't think it would hurt to get everybody, you know, there's different, maybe it's something that should at least be asked, and I do agree with Julie on that maybe it wouldn't hurt to, if maybe it's like this great thing that we hadn't thought of. It wouldn't work for me, and it probably wouldn't work for you, but I don't think, you know, like Mark's saying, if we give them more options to begin with and then narrow it down, I don't think that there would be any harm in at least exploring that.
I have one more question. I can't remember this year how it ended up, but Plan A puts the 2.5 days plus 2 weekend days at the end of a reporting period. And the full week is in the middle of a reporting, is in the middle of a, what, six week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this year, I remember worrying about eligibility because kids getting things turned in and cramming everything. What have teachers said about the timing of the reporting period and then having this break. Because the way it is, kids would have to have everything in 4.5 weeks to get it turned in, to get it, graded, to have the teachers turn everything in by the end of the reporting period coming at the end of those. In other words, before they leave for that time, and then the grace period would come after or during that week?
My understanding with the full week off is any students that is eligible because you've been off a week. Is that correct, Janice? Yes.
I
So
know it's like that at spring break.
it's because it's a full week.
Right.
It has to do with the number of days they would be eligible. For the end of the 6 weeks on the 30th, a student would not become ineligible until that following Friday, a week later. So I don't know that it
That would
plays
be the
into
grace.
it.
Okay.
It would be fine.
So what did teachers say this year? Was it in the middle of the reporting period? The one, do we have any input about that? Because this, to me, if I'm a middle school or above, this would make a difference. But maybe I'm overthinking it.
We had Josh Woodall, he was the athletics representatives that was on the calendar committee, and he got up and talked about the eligibility. And so he didn't say that there was any concerns for this year. Scroll down a little bit more.
Yeah, and
But it'd be other groups too.
right, I don't
besides
recall any
athletics.
concerns, not just with athletics, just UIL and eligibility in general.
It was in the middle of the 6 weeks this year.
Okay. Not just for
Right,
athletics. but
and I
for anything.
appreciate you're putting your old admin hat back on, but I'm gonna give a shout out to our directors and our coaches, because they do a really good job keeping kids eligible, which means pushing them to, make their grades and get work turned in, et cetera. So let's hope that they stay proactive on that regardless of the calendar.
Well, I'm going to jump in one more time and just say a couple of things. One is we somehow managed to have only one full week in the spring, and I guess that's the next thing coming is, well, we got to have another full week in there. And I'm saying that only because I'm not still sold on the idea that we have to have 2 full weeks with Christmas coming up shortly thereafter. And so basically you've got travel time on top of travel time. There's a whole private sector world out there that would say, wow, I can't believe anybody's complaining about any options here because, man, you got a lot of time off. And I know the teachers are working sometimes during those periods, but my point is that I hope we don't end up with the full week in the fall because I just don't think it's necessary. I think that most people would be thrilled to have in the employment sector to have a Thursday, Friday, and weekend, 4 days that they could do something. And obviously you can travel or whatever and not necessarily as big a trip as you might otherwise do. But I think that would be a wonderful break for most people. No work, no obligations put on the staff during those 4 days, obviously weekend and 2 days. That would be what I would hope for. And as I said, it's just, if it was just so essential, then we're just going to have to start looking at adding one in the spring too, because we only have one full week. So anyway, I obviously that's where I'm leaning. I hope we don't end up with the board not being able to agree either on when this is all over with. But one other comment, I almost forgot that I was going to say this as well. When we talk about 50-50 on parents, I still firmly believe that one of the sides is looking at it from the standpoint, I've got real problems here that I can't deal with very well for a whole week. And then we have the other side that just basically, they want a break because they want to go do something fun. And I'm sympathetic to both, but I'm way more sympathetic to the people that truly have problems with several kids, perhaps in a single parent, and they just, maybe even Boys and Girls Club is not really a solution for them because it's just not, adequate for what they're looking for, particularly with maybe the age of their kids. So I do hope that we try to give at least a little more, or show a little more concern for those who need it not to be a full week, as opposed to those who simply want it to be a full week, because they want to go have something, do something fun. They're going to have their opportunities. There's going to be plenty of opportunities with the full week for Thanksgiving and plenty of time in the Christmas, New Year's break.
The only other thing I'll add is that I've heard, not recently, but in the past, from those who are employees at Texas A&M, encouraging us to look at their calendar too. So fall break for fall of 2024 at A&M is that October 7th and 8th. And so that's a Monday, Tuesday.
Yes, ma'am. It was part of a discussion, and on the calendar, option A, we do have it as the 4th and the 7th for professional development and parent conference day. The reason we did not do the 8th, it has to do with the window where PSAT is. And so by being out that Tuesday, that really throws a monkey wrench in that. And so we opted to do on this calendar the Friday, Monday because of that. And a couple of the A&M employees said, we don't look at stuff like that when we're making these decisions.
Okay. Just feedback I often get. Why can't y'all align with, right? So, awesome. I know it's super complicated. Like, that's one of the things at the Parent Advisory Committee that we heard from parents who are serving on calendar. They shared their sentiments that, oh my gosh, this is so much more complex than I ever knew. So just want to say, I apologize for, throwing more options at you when I know that y'all have certainly done due diligence. But I think the challenge is how do you meet all the needs when the needs are so diverse and different, and landing on something that can be at least get us to some consensus.
Sure.
And be okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, the board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.071, .074, .0821, and .129. No voting will take place in a closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 12:52 p.m.
forward first.
Board reconvened in open session at 2:13 PM. No action was taken closed session.